Affirmative action is the next target of this Christian terrorist Supreme Court. The majority is Christian terrorist. Affirmative action, I remember, was it back during the 70s? The first time I heard the term was the Bakke case. A guy named Bakke, a white guy, was passed over for admission to, I forget the details, one of the universities. Was it on the West Coast? Was it University of Washington? It was on the West Coast, I believe. But he was passed over in favor of a black student. And he really lost his shit. Rather than applying to a different university, he filed a lawsuit. And the affirmative action was upheld. Bakke lost the case. And I hope I'm getting this right. I do very little research for this program, as you probably have learned over the years. I just try to bring it up out of my personal memory banks. But Bakke lost, and affirmative action became, the law of the land. And affirmative action on the educational level simply meant that universities had the right to reserve certain slots, admission slots, for students of color, which at the time meant African American students. After 350 years of denying black students in this country any fucking right whatsoever, after it took a Supreme Court ruling in Brown versus Board of Education even to establish that black kids had an equal right to, or had a right to equal access to education. After all the shit that they've been through, they being our black brothers and sisters in this country. Now we have a case, a challenge, and this one is serious given the makeup of this court. We have a challenge to the whole idea of affirmative action. No, we don't want the coloreds to have any fucking advantage at all. We white people took advantage of them, used them, enslaved them, murdered them, worked them to death, helped them build capitalism, but fuck them. If they want to go to school and they can't compete on the level of white education in this country, fuck them. That's the attitude. That's the attitude now. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the prevalent attitude on the Supreme Court. Now, the arguments in this case began yesterday. And the court is hearing challenges to admission programs at the University of North Carolina and Harvard. Both of those schools are the ones named in the case, but so many universities use the system. But it's North Carolina and Harvard that are named, and both of them use race among a bunch of factors in seeking a diverse student body. And I like what I don't mean I like it, but I find it incredibly sickening what the Black Avenger on the Supreme Court, the lump that sits in the corner married to the crazed white woman, I'm referring to Uncle Clarence Thomas, what he said yesterday. Well, I don't even know what diversity means. And he not only is he a lying son of a bitch who is completely dominated by this bitch white woman, but the fact that Uncle Clarence would sit there and say, I don't know what diversity means. Are you kidding me? Are you that ignorant? Are you that much of a foolish old fart, Mr. Clarence Thomas, that you can actually say that? I don't know what diversity means. Well, see, once again, I'm getting very pissed off about this stuff. But anyway, let me go on. The court's 6 neo-fascist justices, all of them yesterday expressed doubts about affirmative action. And by the way, that's been upheld under Supreme Court decisions reaching all the way back to the mid-70s. I think the first, was it 78? 76, 75, somewhere back there. And the three liberals on the current Supreme Court defended the programs. And as I mentioned, the programs at UNC and Harvard are programs similar to those used by many other private and public universities. It is the least that the white power structure in education in this country, the least that they can do. So many of these universities, it turns out, were built and funded by the labor and the money generated by enslaved people. I mean, it's just fucking incredible. It's horrifying. The history in this country. This is what the white folks like Ron DeSantis don't want taught. This is critical race theory. This is what white students below the college level are not supposed to know about, among other things. The Solicitor General for the United States, who is arguing in favor of continuing this 50-year decision by the Supreme Court, just like Roe v. Wade was a 50-year decision. But the Solicitor General, Elizabeth Prelogar, she argued that getting rid of race-conscious college admissions would have what she called a destabilizing effect that would cause the ranks of Black and Latino students to plummet at this country's most selective schools. Now, this particular case is being heard by justices. This is following the overturning of the half-century abortion precedent back in June of Roe v. Wade. And the case is brought against UNC and Harvard, are offering a new test of whether the court will once again, because of the fascist majority, sharply turn the law, so to speak, to the right, toward fascism, on another contentious cultural issue. And by the way, this is one that the Christian terrorists have had in their sights for years. I mean, think about it. The so-called conservatives, the Cato Institute, these moneyed white devils, these billionaires who have nothing the fuck else to do but decide that the university system in this country that affords Black students a little bit, a tiny bit, for the few number of Black students who apply, a leg up to get an education. And these white devils sit around and figure, hey, listen, let's go fuck that up. Why? I mean, do they have nothing else to do, these rich white men? And in some cases, rich white women like the bitch Ginny Thomas, nothing else to do but cause disruption and pain and disappointment for the descendants of people who were enslaved in this country and treated worse than fucking dirt and vermin. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these Christians? What is wrong with these Christians? Madness. The Associated Press has this sentence: the questions the justices offered further laid bare the stark ideological divisions on the court in an era of intense political polarization in the country. Yeah, the questions that Sammy the Fish and the Black Avenger and the drunk and the uber Catholic from Notre Dame and the rest of these people, and then poor befuddled John Roberts, the questions that were being asked of the Solicitor General in defending, she was defending affirmative action. The questions being asked made it very clear how these justices are going to rule. Once again, they're going to take something with a 50-year history and trash it. Something that is valuable, necessary, especially given the white history of the United States. And then Uncle Clarence, who, by the way, after Thurgood Marshall, he's the second black justice. Now there have been 3. But there's Uncle Clarence, who has a long record, a disgusting record of opposition to affirmative action programs and the rest of his neo-fascist positions. It's like, I haven't said this before, but it seems to me that Clarence is just trying his goddamnedest to climb out of his black skin. Every fucking ruling this man has made, for the most part, has had a negative effect on people of his race. Deliberate, conscious, mean-spirited. And in his questions, he noted that he didn't go to racially diverse schools. No, you didn't, asshole, because you went to schools here in Georgia 70 fucking years ago, or 60, or whatever it was. What did you expect? But at one point, Uncle Clarence said, quote, "I've heard the word diversity quite a few times, and I don't have a clue what it means." End quote. And this is supposed to be an educated member of the United States Supreme Court. I don't know what the word diversity means. And then he challenged the people who defend affirmative action to, quote, "Tell me what the educational benefits are," end quote. Tell me what the educational benefits are. I mean, it's just staggering to me, and I'm white, I think. Well, predominantly white. And then Justice Amy Catholic Barrett, another one of these Christian terrorists, pointed to one of the court's previous affirmative action cases and said that case anticipated a halt to the use of affirmative action when the Supreme Court in a previous case declared that any classification based on race was, her word, dangerous, and had to have an endpoint. Dangerous? Giving a little bit of advantage to black students after their 350-year history of genocide, torture, enslavement, lynching, being dragged behind fucking pickup trucks, denied the right to vote, and she, Amy Catholic Barrett, says that declaring any classification based on race was dangerous? Talk about a full-fledged Karen. Where have you been, Amy Catholic Barrett? I forget. You were in the sanctified halls of this bastion of Christian murder, the Catholic Church, Notre Dame. Chief Justice John Roberts, Mr. Cool, Mr. Suave, who has long been, according to reports, skeptical of the consideration of race where it concerned university admissions. He's been skeptical. This white privileged man has been skeptical of considerations based on race. I'm skeptical. He said, quote, referring to the attorneys representing the schools who want to keep what they're doing, he said, quote, "Your position is that race matters because it's necessary for diversity, which is necessary for the sort of education you want. It's not going to stop mattering at some particular point," end quote. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? Of course, race matters. Because of course it's necessary for diversity. Mr. Chief Justice, for fuck's sake, take a look at the history of this country. The vast majority, if not all, with a few exceptions, of the advancements being made, advancements up towards equal protection under law by black folk, has come as the result of decisions made by our judicial system. So his statement, your position is that race matters because it's necessary for diversity, which is necessary for the sort of education you want. It has to be enforced by the court. It must be. Do you think this white-dominated, Christian-dominated, terrorist-dominated branch of government, the legislative branch, is going to fucking ever pass laws establishing what the courts have had to do where it concerns even the effort of acknowledging what was done by whites to black people? Sammy the Fish Alito. He, in his questioning, likened affirmative action to a foot race in which a minority applicant, read black person, gets to, quote, start 5 yards closer to the finish line, end quote. What a rotten fucking thing to say, Mr. Sammy the Fish. That a black person who is given a chance through affirmative action gets to start 5 yards closer to the finish line in a foot race. But that's how Sammy the Fish, this Nazi Catholic fucker, sees it. Gotta keep beating those blacks down. Can't give them a chance. 5 yards closer to the finish line. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who was the court's first Hispanic member, rejected what the Fish said. She said that what universities are doing is looking at students as a whole. The entire student body, Sammy the Fish, you dumb fuck. Going back to Steve Schmidt, shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down. Right. And then the newest justice, the first black woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson. She pointed out to these ignorant savages that race was being used as one of 40 different factors at the University of North Carolina as part of a broad review of applicants. 40! But the white racists in this country and on the Supreme Court will focus and have focused on that one aspect, race. Oh, you mean the Negroes are going to get a 5 yard head start in the foot race? Justice Jackson said, quote, they, referring to UNC and Harvard, they are looking at the full person with all of these characteristics, end quote. Trying to point out to the Christian demons on the court that it's not just race. And Justice Elena Kagan, who was the first female dean at Harvard Law School at one point in her career, she called universities, quote, the pipelines to leadership in our society, end quote. Yes, indeed. And that, Justice Kagan, I may suggest, is the reason that the white devils in this society are fucking panicked. Leadership? That's why they went apeshit about Barack Obama. Justice Kagan also suggested that without affirmative action, minority enrollment, read, black students, will drop. Justice Kagan said, quote, I thought part of what it meant to be an American and to believe in American pluralism is that actually our institutions are reflective of who we are as a people in all our variety, end quote. Well, she says she thought part of what it meant to be an American was to believe that stuff. Yeah, I believed that once too. And I'm sure Justice Kagan is referring to, I don't know, maybe sometime in her past she believed that, just like sometime in my past I believed that. But I know now it's not fucking true. Part of what it means to be an American and to believe in American pluralism is that our institutions are reflective of who we are as a people in all our variety. To be clear, I am not suggesting that every single American of African descent is somehow denied entry into the top levels of business, politics, art, entertainment. But what I am saying is that young people of color, young people of African descent in this country have been so targeted for 300 years to the point where the whole idea of self-preservation and self-respect is missing in so many of these young black folk because of what they have lived with, what was force-fed them, what they were told about themselves from the moment they were born. And if there is no way for white America to correct that, to come to the rescue of young black people who are suffering from that, without even realizing in so many instances that they are in fact suffering. If there is nothing, abso-fucking-lutely nothing that white America can do, then it speaks volumes of the path that we are on and what we are going to face. And I would just say to these white justices on the Supreme Court and the Black Avenger, the same thing Steve Schmidt said to Elon Musk. Sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.